then they don't realize there's so many other things you have to be good at, like running a business and handling employees, and then you get so far removed from the actual doing the work that you love. And so I think a lot of the growth of my business is helping people grow that side of protecting their business.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk Podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by attorney Karalynn Cromeens, who specializes in work for construction firms. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk Podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding Podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Karalynn, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Can you please tell me about your law practice?
Sure, yes. I've been a licensed attorney for the last 17 years. And really, I went to law school and I ended up in the construction industry as a law practice, kind of out of necessity. So my last year of law school, my husband and I started a material supply company. And so I really dove into that area of law as far as collections and all of that went. And then I realized that I grew up in the construction industry, so it was kind of like a fit for me, just how the processes work and everything. And that it was, I'm actually really good at it, and and good at it from the sense of trying to keep my clients out of trouble.
I'm guessing that, having grown up in the industry, you understand some of the special things that go into running and owning a construction business, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And so, I worked for my uncles were some of my first jobs, and most companies, like a subcontractor that goes out and do the jobs, a lot of them are family run, right? So husband and wife team usually, or some, even parents involved, but seeing the ins and out of how that family business worked, the pain points of getting paid on time, just the operations of the business and where they need help, especially from a legal perspective, and trying to fill that need as much as possible that fits the way their business works. So like returning phone calls in the same day, to answer questions, to give ideas on how to resolve issues.
What are some of the common things that your clients are dealing with?
A lot of the times I get a lot of calls of like, okay, I had this situation where I finished this project 8 months ago, and now the client's saying they want all their money back. And, kind of what are the options at this point, and just really talking over, okay, your option is to not respond or to offer some money or to hire, to go through all of those options. So usually a big part of my job is problem solving. And hopefully that they know that I'm here so that they problem solve before they get sued, because once you get sued, it's real expensive.
So is it fair to say that the folks that are calling you are dealing with some kind of situation that they're in and not like thinking ahead to prevent something bad from happening again or from happening in the future?
I'm trying to change that. Yes, I'd still say like 80% of them are, but right now I'm trying to push the very much preventative. So I have people calling me for contracts to try to prevent things. At least my residential contractors are calling me to draft contracts. And then my commercial contractors are calling me to review contracts so that at least they can understand what they're signing. So there is some preventative, but most people end up here because they had some experience. And then I'm like, hey, well, what about this while you're here?
Sure. Right. My understanding is based on your book, which we'll let you plug that here in a little bit, but part of your practice is in part anyway, is to get clients to pay up to your clients, their clients to pay your clients.
Absolutely. And so I think that's a huge thing in the construction industry, is that since it always runs on credit, getting clients paid is a huge push, and especially in the different industries. But that's one thing that we are very good at. And we use the lien laws and just a consistent collection strategy to make sure our clients get paid.
What advice would you give contractors to avoid getting in trouble with their clients not paying them?
So there's a couple different things. So like on the residential side, the biggest thing you could do there is be upfront about when you expect payment and how to let them know that you expect payment. So like when I draft a contract, it's like a milestone contract. We get to this point, I'm going to send you an invoice, and then you have 3 days to pay me. Excuse me. And then what happens if they don't, right? I can stop working until you do pay me. On the commercial side, it's more you got to file your pay app and then knowing what your lien rights are. To make sure that they can get paid and make sure you're following the same process over and over again. And once you become that squeaky wheel, you'll get paid first.
once your clients, yeah, you have to train them, right? I've heard other contractors say, yeah.
No, absolutely.
What is a reasonable deposit to ask for? I know it varies throughout the country. I've heard California, you can't ask for more than $1,000, right?
Correct. Yep. That's the one state I know of so far that has a restriction on how much you can get down. Some other states like Texas have restrictions on if you're like like a storm contractor. So if you're following storms, there's restrictions on that. But generally speaking, I would get at least 10% down. Like I said, except in California, you're limited to that thousand. And then try to, during the course of the project, leave the very smallest amount to the end. So, at least 10%. If you can get away with more for your scope of work, do that. Getting paid up front as obviously resolves the payment issues on the end as if you've already been paid.
I've heard contractors say that the language they like to use is substantially completed instead of done or completed, right? Are you allowed to do that?
I
Yes.
mean, basically, you put in whatever the contract, whatever you want. What I suggest my clients do, especially on the residential side, is like, okay, there's going to be this walkthrough punch out process, and here's how it goes. And then at that point, we're going to expect full payment, right? This is your chance to point out any and all issues you have. And at that point, too, you're going to go through and point out all the issues. This is the one chance you get, so make sure you have your list, and then point out all the issues. We're going to fix that. You're going to issue a final check and sign off that we've done a good job. But explaining that whole process up front is because homeowners have an idea in their head of how this project's going to go, and it's not based on anything that is in reality of how a
It's
project
just what they
goes.
think. Yes.
Exactly. Somebody told them it should go this way. It should only take
Right.
2 days. It only costs $5,000, and when you don't do that, then they're upset. So that's kind of the job of the contract. So.
I've heard from a professional tile setter who's worked as an expert witness in defect lawsuits that arbitrators and judges often ask about specifications for a job, a document that describes how the work should be done, and some performance criteria. I would say that's very seldom done in residential work. Do you think that's a problem?
Well, I think there is a standard, whether you put it in your contract or not, that you're going to be held to, that an expert's going to testify that industry standard is X, Y, Z. And so what I try to do on the front end is go find the standard that you like and just reference it in your contract, right? So like for my painting contractors, I say we're going to work at the standard described by the PCA. And I put the link to the website in there that says, hey, this is the standard. Basically, big things on that is like when you judge the paint, you got to stand 4 feet back. You can't be right next to it with a flashlight. So if you get into this point, like you're in litigation, they're going to find the standard that is the general building standard, unless you have something else in your contract. And so take the time to find the one that you like and the one that you can work within, and just reference it in the contract. You don't have to put the actual standard there, but just say, I'm working under this standard, and it could be found here. But obviously read that before you agree to that.
Like you said, make sure it's the one you like.
Exactly. Find the one that is what you're actually doing, and then just reference it in there. That way, if a dispute does come up, there's no doubt I was working under this standard, like ASTM for concrete guys or whatever, whatever
Right.
the different standards are for the different industries.
I think the NAHB has a pretty easy one to pass. So if those of you listening are looking to save yourself some aggravation, maybe go there. What are some of the things that contractors forget to put in their contracts? And are boilerplate contracts you find on the internet worth having at all?
So something in writing is better than nothing, right? And so having something like that is better than nothing. Once you get into it and you start making some money, it's worth making that investment to get a contract that works. And so the contract that works for your business is going to have things like, change order provisions, scheduling provisions, material escalation clauses,
Payment
things like,
schedules.
yeah, and things like that will really help define the relationship and keep you out of trouble. Right. So one of the first things when you start a residential contracting business is, you need insurance, you need to be incorporated, and you need a contract that's done for your business. And then here's the thing: as you go through your business, you're going to run into situations that you didn't think of that you're going to have to add to your contract. Like somehow the dog got out and the homeowner is mad at you, and you'd be like, hey, I'm not responsible for dogs getting out. Or, and the contract can become a living and breathing thing.
So when I hear a contractor say that they only do handshake deals because they're reliable and their clients are reliable, that's a risky thing, right? You just
Absolutely, because there's no more that the most expensive kind of litigation that you can end up with is one without a contract. Because you can't even imagine the stories that they're going to come up with that you were hired to do. And what's who's to say that they're wrong because I don't have anything in writing, but I was going to do this. Well, you know, they thought the bathroom remodel included the whole kitchen. So and then we're fighting it out and that's when it gets real expensive.
just because of lawyers' time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like I said, even when I tell my guys, is even like on the projects you're doing pro bono, like if you're doing work for a church or something, just put on an invoice. Here's what I'm doing. Cause I've seen those guys get sued all the time too. And it was never supposed to go that way. So just being upfront about what you're doing and what you're not doing is hugely important.
I've never thought of that. Um, I've also heard contractors say that they've had to fire a client and walked off a job because the client was unreasonable or maybe they didn't make a progress payment or whatever. Can you do that? Can you fire a client?
It depends on your contract. Okay. So you can, but what are the ramifications? Okay. So if you don't have in your contract that you can fire your customer for any reason, if you walk the job and don't come back and they hire somebody else to do your scope of work, whatever you were hired to do, and it costs them more, you're on the hook for the difference. So it's not just as easy as walking away from any payment that you may have been owed or something like that. If you don't have it in your contract that you can do that, then you're on the hook. I'm not, and so the question is, would they come after you? I don't know. It's just something that you need to take into consideration before you make that decision. And a lot of the times too, at least the clients I've dealt with that do have those, I can fire you client for any reason. Once they try to pull that provision, the client's like, oh, I don't want you to go. What do I need to do? And they can really be turned around at that point because you have the leverage of, I'm really not interested in this job anymore because of XYZ, and they can work on those issues. So I have seen it turn around from there too.
So, at the end of a project, your client is unhappy for whatever reason, reasonably, unreasonably. It's not a lot of money. Let's say, a few $1,000s. Do you fight them over that? Do you try and make them happy? Do you go to court on principle? What do you tell your clients to do?
Never go to court on principle because it's entirely too expensive. I mean, something that's $15,000 or under, I would seriously consider trying to negotiate, right? Just because how fast the attorney's fees rack up if you get sued. Yeah, $3,000. I know it's a pain in the ass, and I know it's not,
And it might be your profit on the job in some cases,
no,
right?
absolutely. And it might be more than your profit, but
Yeah.
what I know is that if you get wrapped up in a dispute where you're sued, you're talking about not only paying attorney's fees that you'll probably never get back. You're talking about your time and hours spent dealing with it, your documents that have to be turned over, the depositions that have to be done. You'd much rather take that time and effort and put it in growing your business. And so unless it's a substantial sum, in my opinion, it's better to work it out than to fight it out in court.
We'll be back with more right after this. Regular listeners to the Fine Home Building podcast have heard us mention ZipSystem building enclosures, the integrated sheathing and sealing solution system, providing a streamlined approach to exterior water, air, and thermal management. But they may not be aware of the multiple resources available to builders with application or installation questions. HUBERWOOD.com has the install detail library and access to the technical information team. How-to information is also available on the ZipSystem YouTube channel and on Instagram and TikTok by following @HuberWood. Your law firm has grown significantly since you started. You now have how many attorneys?
8 of us.
Wow. And how many staff members to
I
help?
think there's 25 of us total.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were in 3 Texas cities. Was it Austin, Houston, and San Antonio? Is that right?
Correct. And we can
Um,
actually work in all 50 states as far as contract review and collections, and we're working on being licensed in more states as well.
so why is your business booming? It's either a credit to your skills as an attorney or construction is booming or something's going on. I think you'd agree.
No, I think once people listen, they're tired of getting screwed, right?
Yeah.
And getting screwed in the construction industry, and that there's ways around it and there's ways to protect yourself. I think a lot of guys go into the construction industry because they love what they do, right? But then they don't realize there's so many other things you have to be good at, like running a business and handling employees, and then you get so far removed from the actual doing the work that you love.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of the growth of my business is helping people grow that side of protecting their business. Don't get me wrong, there's still some disputes and everything, but my real push, and I've gotten people to come on board, is like, what can we do preventatively?
And you actually wrote a book to this subject. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, so the book is Quit Getting Screwed, and it's actually for mostly for commercial contractors on how to review a subcontract and the dangerous things that can be in a subcontract, because those are very one-sided documents if you've ever had to sign one or reviewed one.
Like, don't keep me in suspense. Like, what are some of the things that they try and put in there?
I mean, the biggest one that's in all of them is the pay when paid clause, right? You're a subcontractor that's working, doing a great job, but for some reason the owner doesn't pay the general, and that is a condition of your payment. So if the owner doesn't pay the general doesn't have to pay you. And so you could do everything right and still not get paid and still have to keep working because your contract doesn't allow you to get out. So that's one
Is
of the
it
big ones.
is it can you get out of that? Can you just like say, I'm not agreeing to that provision? Do subcontractors have that leeway?
Usually not if they want to get the job. So there's ways you can negotiate it, right? So it's never like cross it out, I'm not agreeing to it. It's, so let's like, okay, if you don't get paid, you'll pay me 50%, or you'll pay me some amount to at least keep me going. And it's sometimes like the project managers or whatever you're working with don't realize the risk that you're taking. So basically, if you sign the pay when paid clause as is, you don't negotiate, you should be prepared to have the cash flow that it takes to do that entire project and not get paid, because that's the risk that we're taking.
Which could be, with a commercial client, millions of dollars, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is something that we haven't discussed yet that you wish contractors knew about protecting themselves legally or running their business with regard to the law and legality?
One of the biggest things I think is really misunderstood or not known enough is what lien rights are, right? And that's the biggest push and leverage to get a contractor paid on time. And basically what a lien is, it allows you to have a security interest in somebody's property to the extent that you provided labor and materials. So it's just like a mortgage or something like that. It is a lien on somebody's property. It is an extreme remedy. The rules are different in all 50 states to have liens, and they require notices and filing liens. But once you get the process down, it's will turn around your cash flow. There's no doubt. I mean, I've seen it over and over and over again.
Because contractors have to wait to get paid, and lien laws help them get paid on time. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah.
Absolutely. And just, knowing that they have those rights, because I think a lot of guys don't even know that they have those rights, or they may have heard about it, but they don't understand what it actually is. And so diving into what are the rules for your state, how, and how can we help? And actually I have subcontractorinstitute.com has all of the rules on how to file a valid lien in all 50 states that are listed for free.
Is it a reasonable expectation as a contractor that you have these protections granted to you automatically, or are there documents have to file with a job to have this legal protection?
It depends on the state, and it depends on your relationship to the owner. Like some states have a pre-lien notice you got to send within 20 days of first work. I know like Florida has that. There's several states that have that. And if you don't do that, then you don't have lien rights. Mm-hmm. So yes, there are, and there's some things like if you're working for a homeowner, there's got to be some certain things in some states that have to be in your contract at that point. And also along with that too, in the states that you need to be licensed, as a contractor, if you're not licensed, they won't let you enforce your contract or get payment. So that's another important thing too. If you're like thinking about going to a new state or something like that, make sure and see what the licensing requirements are.
One of the realities of construction work, especially on the residential side, is under the table and undocumented workers. What would you tell your clients regarding folks who are getting paid under the table?
I mean, I don't think it's a good idea for several reasons. Number one, and I think that's done to not pay a person what they're worth. And so everybody that works in the trades deserves to be paid what they're worth, right? And then what kind of guarantee or warranty are you going to have on that work if you're paying them under the table? I mean, it's not good business practice, and it's just not good in general.
Can you tell me about your own house? Have you had to have any challenging conversations with your contractors, or have they filed liens against you?
I had one try once, and he messed it up, so I didn't even really bother dealing with it. We've had several, and the main thing is that they don't have contracts. They have purchase orders, um, which are not really that effective. And so it's like, I know all the things you need to do, and usually I can work it out, whatever issues I've had with contractors. So it's gone successful in the end. But it's just like trying to get people on board. Hey, this job could go a lot smoother if you had a contract. It's worth the investment. And my firm does them on a flat fee, and it's worth that investment to keep you out of trouble.
Can I ask, what was your family's business in the construction industry growing up? And tell me about it, please.
Yeah. So my first job was, my uncle was an irrigation contractor. He did both residential and commercial, and so I, learned the CAD and learned how the jobs went and the customer interactions, and then the commercial side, which then I had no idea what the commercial side was, right?
These are big projects, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
no, exactly, and especially when you're doing both, it's such a different world of different way you treat customers, different pay, different everything. So yeah, I spent a lot of time doing that, most summers doing that. And then
Did you end up hearing family members complaining about clients not paying them or other problems they had with them? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That was, and just the pressure of, okay, I need to get this check or I'm not going to make payroll, and
Yeah.
what that feels like. And especially as an owner, then owning my own business is like, oh, I got to figure this out because I got people that are depending on me. Right.
And so I learned from your website that you and your husband, I believe, bought a masonry company, Masonry Supply company, right? Do you still own that?
Oh yeah. We started it from the ground up. It was just the two of us. And now it has 3 locations, in Texas. And does, his thing is customer service is key, which I believe too. And so they've done a great job, and it's still a very successful business.
Why'd you pick Masonry Supply as an industry?
Mhm. I mean, that's what he was actually doing it for somebody else, and then he could just
Uh,
kinda took over and started on his own, which then gave me the respect for people that start their own businesses. There's been nothing harder in my life than to and keep a business like that alive. I mean, even harder than going to law school and all of that. This way took way more effort, took way more dedication, and that made me realize how hard these people work to get there and how much it deserves to be protected because it's time away from your family. I mean, you devote your entire life to getting it off the ground.
what made him want to do that? What made you want to let him do that?
He's tired of working for somebody else and thought he could do it better. Just
Yeah,
like most of these guys, I think I could do this so much better.
that's awesome.
And you start doing it better, and you're like, "Gosh, I'm tired." Doing it better is exhausting.
There is a whole degree of commitment that I just so admire for folks who start their own business. It is a huge undertaking, and if you think it's an easy way to make a good living, it's not.
It's scary. It's very
It's very
scary.
scary.
There's so many things that you don't control or you don't know, and then there's things you learn the hard way, and hopefully it's not too hard because I mean, some things you learn the hard way can take you out of business.
I suspect your husband has experienced the ups and downs of the construction business too, and that's a very peculiar aspect of the business, right?
Absolutely. And that's something you can't control, right? So, I mean, and the only way to prepare for that is to have cash on hand, right?
Yeah.
So that you can make it through the potentially lean times because they
Have you
have
had trouble sourcing material like so many other businesses during COVID? Yeah.
a little bit, probably not to the extent as the lumber guys and the roofing guys. But yes, and that's another real thing that needs to be in contracts too, whether it's commercial or residential, is that
Explain, please.
so like on your residential contracts, being upfront with your homeowners, this is the schedule that I'm going to try to keep, but as long as I can get the materials or appliances or whatever it is, just being upfront. And then on the commercial side, if we don't have something in the contract that says we get extra time, if something doesn't come in or like that, then we're held to the schedule that is in the contract. And then liquidated damages are based on that schedule.
So you're paying every day that that project is not completed, right?
That you didn't finish your scope of work on time,
Oh
whether it's
man.
legitimate or not. Yeah. And that's to say that's contract provision is in there. They could enforce it. They don't, but I mean, it's free money to them, right? They could just enforce it because it's in there and you didn't complete on time.
Almost every day I learn a new wrinkle of being a contractor. Like you, it takes. I have such great respect. It takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work. And like people are leaving the trades, right? Because it's because of these risks and because of these things are so hard. And if you don't do it right, it can be very painful. I'm trying to help change that around so that Because it is an honorable way to make a living, and it's an honorable way to, raise a family.
Amen. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Karalynn. What's your firm's website so folks can look up your law firm?
Absolutely. thecromeenslawfirm.com.
And is there anything you'd like to tell or ask our listeners before we go?
No, just, if you ever need help, feel free to reach out. I'm on Facebook. You can message me there. It's Karalynn Cromeens, or feel free to give me a call. But the consultations are free. And just to give you ideas to get through those hard situations that you might, need ideas on.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. Thanks to Karalynn Cromeens for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Happy building. Karalynn, you were awesome.
Thank you.